What's going on, you guys? TBR here, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another King of Fighters All-Star video. In today's video, we will be breaking down the 127 update, as we have a ton of stuff to look at today. We're going to be taking a look at SS Terry and SS Mary. We're going to be looking at the newest cards, as well as all the new in-game events, new in-game packages, and yeah, I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting in this intro, but we'll get to it in the video. But before we get to all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe. It's 5 a.m., so let's do this thing. Cue the intro. Alright, you guys, so we're going to hop straight into the video today, but if you guys are interested in anything in particular, timestamps will be available and the chapter functionality will be active. So the first thing you're going to notice is we have a new background, so pretty cool stuff. The next thing I want to go ahead and point out here to you guys is actually going to be the new login event. So this is going to be the new login event that you'll see whenever you open up the game for the first time after the update. Not much to talk about here, pretty much standard fare. It's kind of just more of the same, so we're not going to get too much into that. It's just a new login event. The items are always nice, but not anything too fancy. Now, when it comes to the events, there's a lot of events here, so I'm going to try and go through these as best as humanly possible, and then we'll get to the characters and the packages. So the first thing I want to go ahead and talk about here is actually going to be the two things that you are going to need SS Terry or SS Mary for. So the first thing is, of course, going to be the tower. Now, this is basically going to be structurally the exact same as what we've come to expect with any of these tower events. So if you've been around since the Guilty Gear collaboration, or even more recently with the latest Boss Syndrome update, then you'll know, or at least be familiar with how these towers work. Basically, you're going to need to either use Terry or Mary in this tower in order to unlock all these different rewards. And structurally, as far as the rewards are concerned, from what I've been told, because I can't enter because I don't have either of the characters yet, basically these are going to be the same rewards that we saw with the Boss Syndrome tower, only they've pretty much swapped things out for the SS fighters instead. So that's pretty much what you're looking at there. Now, of course, that is not going to be the only event that you can exclusively play with the new characters. You're also going to have this time attack mission here, so you're going to need Terry or Mary to do this. Now, of course, the big selling point here is this is extra rubies every day, so you guys are definitely going to want to heavily consider on whether or not you're going to at least want to pull for one or both of these characters so that you can do these things, because a lot of the time, if you're lucky enough to get one of these characters early on from your summons, they'll almost pay for themselves over time being able to do this stuff. But in general, you cannot play either of these modes without these characters, so that is something you're going to have to consider. Luckily, though, they are doing that push login event, so you should have a multi-summons worth of tickets in your inboxes the first time you open up the game today. And they're going to alternate it. We talked about this yesterday. You're going to have more tickets every day for the next week or so. You're going to end up with 40 summons total for these characters and 30 for the cards. So hopefully sooner rather than later you end up picking up one of them, so that way you can go ahead and start playing this stuff as soon as possible, especially the time attack mission. So that is pretty much going to be the two things that are exclusive to the new characters. Not much to talk about there. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at now the event codex, because I want to go ahead and get that out of the way first. So basically, you guys are going to see this is structurally the same as what we've seen with any of these codexes, so not much to talk about here. However, the one big thing, of course, we need to bring up is, of course, going to be the stones. So as you guys can see, these are rewards that you'll get for awakening either of these characters to the corresponding awakening tier, so not much has changed there. As far as the stones are concerned, when it comes to the circle stone this time around, we do have an increase to the target's damage received, so that is going to be on your circle stone for the volume 5 characters. And then if we go ahead and move over here to the square, then we are going to see that this guy here is actually going to have an increase to special signature fighters active skill damage. And then finally, if we take a look at the hexagon stone, we are going to see that this one here is going to increase the special signature fighters burn and shock damage. So this is actually interesting. This is the most interesting of all three, because basically this is something new. We're starting to get mixed dot stones, which I had wondered when they were going to start introducing new SS or BS stones considering the fact that they had gotten to a point where they were really just alternating the same effects on the different types of stones as they went, and it seemed like they had run out of things to kind of combine in there without changing things. So that's exactly what they've done. They've changed things, and they've gone ahead and given us something new. So in general, this is a harbinger of things to come, I'm sure. So that's pretty interesting stuff. Overall, that's what we're looking at there. You know, those stones could definitely down the road, depending on the combination and the character, be really good if they continue to do those. So we'll have to keep an eye on that with these future releases. But in general, that is one thing that stuck out to me. Now, the next thing we should go ahead and talk about is going to be the new Rush Dungeon event. So structurally speaking, this is the exact same as any Rush Dungeon event. As you guys will see, you're going to have your 3 stages. You do not want to start grinding on this thing until the final stage opens up. That is going to be where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, but we still have a little bit of time. We of course have to wait for that to open. So in general, you're probably going to want to wait before you start grinding. But as far as what we're looking at here, you guys are going to see these are the characters and the cards you will want to use in order to increase your gain rates. So that is one thing that you always want to note with these. And then if we take a look at the exchange shop, you guys are going to see that the Through Darkness set has been rerun. We talked about this yesterday. This was in the update notice. We've talked about this before because it is a rerun, so I'm not going to get back into it that much in today's video. Pretty much the long and the short of it is this is a really good set if you're going to be tagging in and out. So any mode where you're tagging in and out, this can be very beneficial. And in general, this is a pretty nice little set. If you're somebody that didn't miss out on it the first time around, you're probably going to have extras or not need as many as you're going to have available to you. So you may consider foddering this off. That's up to you. However, if you're somebody that missed out on this the first time around, congratulations, you have a shot at it again. So this is good stuff. As far as what else is in here, they did go ahead and bring back these time limited tokens like we had with the previous Rush Dungeon. So that's really cool. I took advantage of this in a big way, and this actually helped me finish off that but battle card Carnival. So yeah, overall it's nice to see these back. Unfortunately, they are time limited, but I've been picking them up as I've gone myself. Now, as far as the other items in here, the thing that stuck out to me were the soul tokens. This is actually going to be particularly useful if you're somebody that's properly grinding purple dust for your exchange shop. So in my opinion, these will be worth it every day. That's a really nice addition there. And in general, we have rare enhancement hammers plus capsule mystery boxes and so on. So pretty much standard fare outside of what we're seeing here with the soul tokens and these cards. So you guys know me, I always like to pick up the hammers first and foremost, but in general, I'll definitely be picking up the soul tokens, the plus capsules, as well as these tokens here for these summons, just to get some fodder. So that's always nice to have. And then I'll definitely pick up these card sets if for anything. It's just going to be for fodder more than likely, in my opinion, for me. But everybody's going to be different, and you're going to be in a different place than me. So that'll be up to you. But personally, I'll probably just keep a couple sets and move on. So that's pretty much what we're looking at with that stuff. The next thing I guess we can talk about is actually what they did to the guild. So if you take a look here, your guild has completely changed. The UI is completely different. So as you guys can see here, we are going to have a whole new layout here for our guilds. So as you guys can see, this is what you'll see whenever you go into your guild today. So this is pretty cool in my opinion. I actually really like what I'm seeing with this thing. In general, if we take a look here, you are going to notice that this is now going to be where Guild Raid lives, as well as the new Guild Boss Challenge. And with that being said, we should probably talk about the Guild Boss Challenge. So when it comes to the Guild Boss Challenge, there's going to be a little bit that you guys are going to need to know, and I'm going to do a dedicated video for this new mode later on, probably tomorrow. That's probably what I'm going to work on today, so that way I can kind of get this information to you guys as soon as possible. Now, I have played a few practice rounds with this, and from what I've seen, the biggest thing that you're going to need to take into consideration is the boss can nuke you and one-shot you. But like I said, I've only kind of run a few practice rounds with this, so I'm going to wait and see and kind of give you guys my full thoughts tomorrow. As far as kind of just my, surface reactions to this, it's something new to do. It's always fun to have something new because you're kind of discovering things and figuring things out for the first time. And, that to me is always a lot of fun. But as far as what we're seeing here, you guys can see that you're going to have a guardian that you can choose whenever you get into a fight. So basically each one of these guardians, each one of these characters is going to give you a different buff depending on which one you pick. So that's going to be what you're seeing there. And actually you'll see if you go to practice, the first thing it'll ask you is to go ahead and pick a guardian, and then you can go ahead and set up your team. Now, one thing to keep note of if I go in here, you cannot use a striker for your characters, so those are not going to be relevant at all whatsoever, as you guys can see here. So you cannot use strikers for your characters. And then as far as supporters, you can go ahead and use your guardian here. So that's what you're going to have there. And then you can go in and practice without having to worry about using up your run for the day, because you can only, from what they've said, use one run a day on this, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to what we're seeing here with the health bar, you guys are going to see basically, if we take a look here, that we are going to have everybody listed for their rank, their amount of damage that they've put in. My guild has been doing a lot of work on this thing, and overall, this is pretty much where you're going to see that. But when it comes to what we have as far as the tier rewards, why we're doing this, so on and so forth, which is really what's important here, this is what we're going to be seeing. So you guys are going to be rewarded with these coins here. Now, these coins are what you're going to get for basically beating this guy and taking him down. And as you can see, there's a ton of different tiers for your guild to unlock over time. My guild currently is on tier 2. So we're working our way up the ladder as we speak. Like I said, have not gotten a chance to really play today, but you will get a daily first play reward of 100 coins, which is really nice. And what you would use these on is going to be right here. So you're going to have this guild box, and this guild boss box is going to have some pretty interesting stuff in it. So as you guys can see, we can get star and moon stones. Now, of course, that isn't all that's in here, but it is definitely nice to see that we are now going to be able to pick these up in another way outside of being able to craft them and having just kind of miscellaneous events that come up. So in general, these are going to be, if you guys want to take a look here, because of course the first thing you're always going to wonder are the attack ones there? Yes, they are. So that is really nice. And as you guys can see, you're going to have the ones that are specific to your dots as well as your specific types of skills. So all of those are going to be included in the pool. The other things that are going to be in here honestly aren't that interesting in my opinion. So if we take a look here, you know, you've got hammers, which are always nice, including purple hammers, which is really cool. And then you've got this guy here, which lets you transcend a card, which is really nice. But in general, the rest of this stuff, like these here, are just going to pretty much play spoiler and so on and so forth. You've also got your silver boxes in here. So you got some spoilery items in here, like you got these and so on. So in general, this is a decent pool. I would have liked to have seen maybe less of the riffraff and more of the real good stuff. But at the same time, it is what it is. So that is what we're seeing there. It is definitely nice to see that we are going to have a new way to get these stones. Like I said, it's 500 of those coins to go ahead and pick up one of these boxes. So I feel like that's somewhat fair, but in general, it's really going to come down to what this looks like once I can kind of get under the hood and take a look at how difficult this is. So I'll have to let you guys know my full opinions later on this, but right now that's kind of my knee-jerk reaction. But overall, very similarly in structure to the guild raid modes, where you're going to have your full team kind of taking down a collective health bar, and then once that collective health bar is dropped, you're going to unlock the next tier, get the corresponding rewards, so on and so forth. You cap off at, I believe, 30, and then after that, you're pretty much done with that. You go into your exchange shop, pick up your boxes, and that's pretty much going to be the gameplay loop of this thing for the most part. So that is what we are taking a look at there. Now, like I said, I will give you guys a full video on that tomorrow, but the next thing I want to go ahead and talk about here, now that we've kind of gone through all these different modes and all these different events and so on and so forth, is I actually want to go ahead and go into the secret shop. I want to talk about packages. So we're not going to be talking about the buffs to Rock and Adelheid in today's video. The reason being is because we already talked about those yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to sit down and play with either of the characters. So in general, that is something that I do plan on doing. You guys know me, love Rock Howard, so I'm probably going to take some time today to do that, but I have not had a chance to yet, so I'm still going to reserve judgment there. If there's anything worth noting, and if I feel like either of the characters are worth talking about in a separate video, I will do that, but I have a hard time believing that's going to be the case, like I said yesterday. If you guys are more interested in that, you can check out yesterday's video and you'll be able to figure out kind of what's going on there. So when it comes to these packages, there's going to be two different things I want to talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is going to be these packages here. Now, historically speaking, these packages, in my opinion, have been very expensive for the proposition of what is in them. So really what you're looking at with these types of packages typically is going to be spending rubies directly for a package, and the items in the package really aren't, in my opinion, necessarily the greatest sometimes, especially if the character that got buffed that is going to be kind of your memories or your character itself that's going to be included in these isn't very great, kind of like with this latest batch. So if you take a look here though, the biggest selling point is always going to be the stone. We had talked about these yesterday. Now, of course, this is going to be a boss fighter moon imprint stone, which is really cool. However, the effect isn't the greatest. You know, it decreases damage received. We had actually been joking about that on the Discord yesterday about how it was probably going to be decreased damage received more than likely. And so, you know, for 5,000 rubies, you're getting an Adelheid memory, you're getting some of the generic green memories for your Fest characters, you're getting some awakened tier XP capsules and so on. But in my opinion, this is not something that I'm super interested in, only because the effect on this thing for me is not the greatest, and I grinded really hard on that previous event for that roulette, so I have a ton of these moon and star stones for a lot of the characters that I would be using, and so in general I'm not as pressed for these as some might be. 5,000 rubies, especially with a banner going on right now, is just really steep. And I really just don't think that I would be doing that. Now, if you're somebody that really wants this stone, because it is a boss fighter and not just a boss syndrome fighter, then this is going to be actually really useful on a lot of characters. And of course, these stones can be tough to come by sometimes, at least these moon and these star stones, the gold ones. But really, to be honest with you guys, now that we have this new mode also, it does seem like they're probably going to get a little bit easier to acquire. So I don't necessarily think that I would probably be spending a lot on these like this. So in my opinion, I would probably skip out. Now, you do have a Fatal Fury one here, which is actually really interesting only because you have this new banner. So you could technically, if you get them to A3, meaning Terry and Mary, that you could go ahead and use this stone here and have kind of a 4 stone slot kind of mix up there right off the bat without much investment. But again, 5,000 rubies is steep. So I would argue that it's actually a steep investment. So in general, you guys, I don't know that I would be going for these. They're very interesting and I would love to have them. They are, you know, even if they are decreased damage received, they're still good stones. But for me, that's a really hefty price to pay. So it's going to be up to you on how you want to budget your rubies. Of course, we still have the free-to-play ones that are the login ones that you could technically get this for quote-unquote free. But at the same time, it's up to you. I'm not going to be doing that personally. I'm probably going to be going for the fighters because, like I've already established, I really need to be able to play time attack and that tower because I want the rewards. And to me, I'd rather do that than have a stone. So that's just my opinion. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is actually going to be right here. So if we go ahead and actually, no, it's this one. So we are going to talk about the new subscription packages. So I've always told you guys, we had done a video a little while back where I told you guys where I was pretty much at a point where I was only going to pick up the subscription packages as they came up. And as you guys can see, that has pretty much been the case. However, we have 2 new subscription packages here that I want to talk about. So this one here is going to be for 15 days. You're going to be able to obtain 1,800 rubies over the course of that 2 weeks, and you're going to get 300 right off the bat, and then 100 a day in your inbox every time you log in at reset. So, in general, this is pretty much going to be just like any other subscription package. However, it is $7.99 in my opinion, being the fact that the $9.99 one is going to be good for 28 days, and this one is half the time and only $2 less. That's sus. I don't think that that one's necessarily got the best value proposition in the world to it. However, this one here, in my opinion, does. So if you take a look here, you're going to get 1,000 rubies right off the bat for 20 bucks. You're going to get 30 auto clear ticket mystery boxes, and then you're going to get 125 rubies and 5 auto clear ticket mystery boxes and 100,000 gold each and every single day for 28 days. That's really good. In general, I think that this one has a lot of value to it. I think that this one is worthwhile. 4,500 rubies over the course of a month is a decent chunk of rubies, especially for, you know, the price tag there. That's really not bad. So I would say that if you're in the market for a subscription package and you haven't already picked up the normal $10 one, of course the $10 one, in my opinion, is where a lot of the bang for your buck is going to be. I can't look at this though. I don't know if they have changed the price on on the $10 one in lieu of the fact that these are now available, and I think these are going to start being permanent. So you guys can let me know in the comment section down below if this has changed. I don't have any confirmation from anybody yet, so let me know because I'm really curious. That would really suck if it did. But I almost get the feeling because they did this with this one, I almost wonder if this one's been affected. So I'm not sure, but we can always find out. Somebody let me know in the comment section that hasn't already purchased it, and then that way I'll know. So one other thing we can talk about briefly here is going to be the in-game packages for the new SS fighters. Now, these are pretty much going to be the same as what we've come to expect. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds with these. Long story short, this here is going to be your minnow package. If you're a minnow that really wants these characters, you could do this, but I would argue that you're probably better off just seeing what you get from your tickets right now. Of course, the one upside is the tokens do count towards your mileage where the tickets don't. However, being the fact that we do again have the free rubies and we have those tickets coming our way, I would argue that you might be better off waiting a few days and just seeing what happens. Now, here, this one is going to be kind of your dolphin package. For $24.99, you're going to be able to pick up 2 multis for both of the banners currently running, respectively, and you're going to get 800 rubies, as well as 100 auto-clear tickets. This is a decent little value right here. I would argue that this I would prefer to have over picking up multiples of these, honestly. This would be a better option, so if you have the money to spend, that might be worth it for you. Then you're going to have the big old dolphin, or the big old whale package, rather. Now, this one here is, over time, has gotten worse and worse. It used to have a bunch of rubies in it, and then they changed it and started putting items in here. You know, the token amounts are the same, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't like that they changed it. Now, if you're a whale, good lord, I cannot get my my marine animals straight today. If you're a whale and you want to pick up this package, you're not going to need my advice on that. You're a whale, you're going to pick up what you're going to pick up. But I would say that if you're a super fan of what you're seeing with these characters, it's worth it for that, but I don't know. I'm kind of at a point with these types of packages where unless they want to sweeten the pot, I'm really not all that interested unless it's a character I'm super into. If this were like Rock Howard, I would consider it, but no, not going to be happening this time around. Now, we also have this package here. I'm not going to get into this stuff because honestly, these things, in my opinion, are really never worth it. And then this thing here, it's pretty decent. You know, they've shifted the numbers around with the hammers so often that at this point I can't keep up. These things have changed historically a ton. If you guys need hammers, I would argue you're better off just kind of getting them elsewhere because I wouldn't be spending money on hammers. I think you can just get those over time and be patient and not have to worry about it, to be honest with you guys. So that's pretty much what we're looking at there. I guess now that we have gone through all of this stuff, the next thing for us to talk about is going to be the fighters and the battle cards. So let's go ahead and get into it. So yeah, Moo player crashed. What else is new? Anyway, let's talk about the cards here, and we'll go ahead and start from the top, and we will talk about the Agonized Young Wolf set, which is the newest card set to be added into the game with this banner. Right off the bat, I want to tell you guys right now, this card set has some OP card art. Loving what I'm seeing with this art. I'm always a big sucker for the art, and being that it's Rock Howard, I'm quite the fan. So in general, the card art's OP, but what about the card set itself? Well, let's talk about it. So this is going to increase our attack by 7% per card, and we increase our special signature fighters burn and shock damage by 75% and increase our attack by 22% for 7 seconds when a special signature fighter lands an active skill on a cooldown of 10 seconds. In general, structurally speaking, this is very similar to the previous Boss Syndrome set that we just saw. Very similar indeed. As we can see here, this card set is going to be pretty decent overall, I would say. Now, from the early word of mouth, people aren't that big of a fan, and I don't know that I'm necessarily somebody that's going to want this set myself either. Honestly, you guys, this, while can be very good on specific characters, it's so niche that I don't necessarily think, especially with the combination of burn and shock, that I'm all that interested. Now, of course, this isn't a bad set. It is very decent, like I said, on specific characters, particularly if you have a character that can spam explosion. But in general, I'm not necessarily sure that this is something I would recommend that you guys go crazy for. If you end up pulling it when you're going for maybe your 3PG finishers or what have you, then that's definitely going to be to your benefit. But in the long run, down the road, this could maybe be super, super good on specific things that come out as we go. Right now, I'm not necessarily sure that this is going to be a set, though, that you need to have. However, it would be nice to have it, of course, like I've always said with a lot of these card sets, because you never know. But in general, I'm going to wait and see some data on this before I really make a judgment call. Like I said, historically speaking, these types of sets, they can be decent depending on the character available for their card sets like this. In this case, it's going to require special signature fighters, so time will tell. Not a bad set, but not really necessarily that impressed by it myself personally. Now, when it goes to the option card this time around is actually going to be the option card that we've been expecting for a while. As you guys can see, this is going to increase our attack and decrease our skill cooldowns, and it is going to be the card that is going to give us that 50% chance to increase our attack by 13% for 5 seconds upon landing a grab skill. So this is particularly going to be good for a character like the new Blue Mary. So in general, this card could be very, very good for several different characters, especially characters that are going to be grab oriented, which grab in this game is sus. You know, it's always been one of those things that's been kind of a double-edged sword. Depending on the character, it can be decent, or it could be really good, or it could be garbage. So in general, it's going to come down to what character you're looking at. Like I said, Blue Mary is the one that really sticks out for this particular option card, in my opinion. I think that this is a really decent option card, especially for specific characters. And down the road, if we end up getting more characters that are going to be oriented towards grab skills, then this is going to be really nice. But in general, not necessarily, in my opinion, a must own, but if you have specific characters that are favorites that use exclusively or almost exclusively grab skills, you'll probably want to make sure that you at least get one copy of this. So not a bad option card whatsoever. Like I said, we've seen these types of options cards in the past, so overall, pretty good stuff. In fact, one thing I can go ahead and show you guys here, not to make this a super long video or anything, but I want to go ahead and show you guys here real quick, just so you guys can kind of get a visual. So basically, if you take a look here, it's going to be very similar to cards like this. So we all know how good this card is. Very, very awesome option card for a lot of characters out there. And then you've got this one here that, again, very, very similar, just for a different type of skill. So these types of option cards, again, are very, very good. When it comes to that card set we just talked about, if you take a look here, because I do have one piece of it, if I can find it. Oh, there it is. So if we take a look here, this is what I mean when I say that it's very similar to this set. So as you guys can see, that's what you're kind of looking at with our previous Boss Syndrome set, except this one was for Burn in Darkness and Boss Syndrome fighters. So very, very similar in a lot of different ways. So in general, you guys, like I said, when you take a look at these new cards, historically speaking, if we're comparing them to their previous iterations or iterations that were similar, and you take a look at these types of things, you're going to notice that the big thing with this one in particular is this one's active instead of strike skills like that previous Boss Syndrome one was. So that's kind of what I look at when I look at this stuff, as far as how I try to gauge things early on without having hands-on experience, and that kind of gives you at least somewhat of an idea of what you're looking at. So in general, like I said, the option card, definitely probably going to be something you want, especially if you have Blue Mary or other characters that are really strong on their grabs, which off the top of my head for SS fighters, well, actually this one doesn't need SS fighters, so yeah, go crazy. But anyway, that is pretty much what you're looking at with that. So next up here, let's take a look at our 3PGs. So this is going to be the SS Terry 3PG. Now, of course, as you guys can see, this is going to have its own effect, and it's going to recover HP by 8% when using it. Really, really nice when it comes to characters like this that have these types of effects, particularly for things such as Daimo's base and so on, if that ever comes back. But in general, this is really good for a character like Terry because he is an attack type. So he's probably going to be a little bit squishy, and he's probably going to want to have this. So this is really nice in general. I'm beginning to really be fond of different heals on these 3PG finishers for these characters. This is something that we actually see on a character like BS Nameless, which is definitely not going to be the only time in this video we probably draw the comparison to Terry, but we'll get to that point. Now, You're also going to notice that these are going to have the different effects to them as well that you can get. So typically I like to have the skill one. That's the one I like to have for any of these new 3PGs for these characters. That's kind of the direction I go because I know somebody's going to ask. And then when it comes to Blue Mary, first of all, I really like this card art. I think this looks really good. But as far as the effect on this one increases your attack by 10% and your critical rate by 3.6 for 10 seconds when using it. So in general, another really nice one. Honestly, this one is really, really good because you are getting that critical rate, which is always nice, and you're getting a nice 10% attack. So that's really nice for this character. In general, you know, it's not the most... how do I put this? It's not anything that's going to have like versatility for other modes where you're going to kind of look at that and go, well, this could make this character pretty good for this in particular, kind of like with what Terry has with the heal, where you could definitely see that being beneficial for certain things. However, it's never, never, never a bad thing to increase your attack and your crit rate. So in general, really good stuff. You know, anytime you get these bonus effects, like they're just that, they're bonus effects, and you definitely like to see it. So in general, the card banner this time around. Card set, it's all right. Not anything I'm super impressed by, but like I said, it's really going to come down to what kind of use cases we can unearth for it over time. But in general, I don't think right now it's necessarily the most must-have set in the world. The option card for specific characters, if you have them, is going to be must-have for Mary in particular. I get the feeling, you know, while it might not be I shouldn't say must-have, it's probably going to be one you're going to want to have for her. And then when it comes to these finishers, like I said, the finishers are really, really good. Finishers in general, anytime a character gets a new 3PG finisher, as long as it's a long animation, it's great. So that's exactly what these are. They have bonus effects on them. One heals you, one gives you an increase to your attack and your crit rate. So in general, you can't complain about either of them. Really good stuff, and you're going to want them if you're pulling for these characters. So, speaking of the characters, we've got two of them to talk about. So, which one should we start with? Let's go ahead and start with Mary. Let's talk about Blue Mary here. So, Blue Mary is a blue defensive type. She is going to have a leadership ability that increases grab skill damage by 65% and obtains 5% power upon using grab skills. That's good. That's really good, at least for her. So in general, this leadership ability for herself is super, super solid. I really like what I'm seeing there. It's kind of a hybrid leadership ability where you're going to be increasing your grab skill by 65%, which if we take a look here, I'll show you guys. Grab skill, grab skill, grab skill, grab skill, grab skill. Yeah. So in general, like I said with the option card, really, really good for her, but this is a really good leadership ability for her in particular, or you could use her as a leader for characters, maybe even such as a Boss Syndrome Chrysalid or the like. Any character that's going to have a decent amount of grab skills for the most part will benefit. So in general, a nice little leadership ability. Typing wise, a really nice typing, especially for things such as high levels of Reviving Hell's Dungeon. So in general, can't complain about what I'm seeing here right off the bat. And she is a Fatal Fury character, so you can go ahead and pick up that stone that's in that package we already talked about, like I said earlier, if you really want to, and put it on her as well. So let's talk about the cores. First up here, you got the 30% power charge rate increase. You'll love to see it. That's always something you look for on these new characters, so she has it. So good stuff to start off the kit. When we take a look at what else we got here, we have a flat increase to our defense, we have an increase to our crit rate, we have a continuous damage enhanced to shock damage, which increases our shock attack damage by 15%. She is going to have this skill enhanced grab here, which is also going to be pretty nice considering she's only got grab skills. She has an increase to her attack, and then she has her exclusive cores. So first up here we have Mary Lion. She's going to become immune to stun and shock. All right, and decreases active skill cooldowns by 0.5 seconds when attacking a shocked target. Awesome. Really, really good stuff. And then she has an 80% chance to stun all targets for 1 second upon using an active skill on a cooldown of 5 seconds. So an 80% chance is extremely high. It stuns everything on the board, which is really good. However, it's only for 1 second, so it's not necessarily the most broken thing in the world, but it has a very short cooldown. So in general, for mobbing and things such as that, this character probably going to be really good with this core. I haven't gotten a chance to really take a look at it for that type of thing yet, of course, but I do get the feeling that this is definitely going to at least help her case in those types of modes. So in general, the Mary Lion core, really, really good. Now, the freelance agent one, and actually real quick before we move on, The decrease of your active skill cooldowns by 0.5 seconds when attacking a shocked target. This is always active, so this is something that is really good for her. When it comes to these types of cores, we've always talked about how important they are. This character in general, when we get further into her kit, you're going to be able to tell, but this is going to be a character that is absolutely just going to bully Lunatic, Guild Raid, Nightmare Geese, like absolutely just demolish him and not have any, she's not going to give any Fs whatsoever. So it's going to be kind of hilarious to see what people are able to do with her, even at low awakening levels. I get the feeling that almost just based on this here, as well as the other parts of her kit that we'll get into, she's going to absolutely destroy him. And this is going to be one of the reasons why. So this is going to be something new here. She's going to activate on Freelance Agent something called Stun Fang. So when attacking a target that can't be grabbed, she deals damage equal to 550% of attack to the target every 0.15 seconds for 1 second. Yeah. So this is new. Stun Fang is new. Basically, this is something that is going to make grab skills a little bit more reliable because you are going to be able to deal this extra damage here. And in general, again, guys, I get the feeling that this character, in things such as Lunatic difficulty against Nightmare Geese, going to absolutely punish him. Just punish him. This is a really, really good thing for her. You know, people were worried about her having a lot of grab skills, and this is something that I think really should assuage any sort of issues that people had there. Now, the PvP exclusive that casts a critical hit shield that absorbs that damage for 7 seconds when attacked if her HP is 70% or less, and removes the shield upon taking 6 critical hits on a cooldown of 15 seconds, is something that's always good for any character in PvP, or just in any game mode in general. For her, it's a PvP exclusive, so hey, you'll love to see it. And then finally, she has the special signature Volume 5 exclusive. Both her and Terry will share this. They gain 1.4% power every 0.4 seconds when in guard stance, and decrease their damage received by 70% for 3 seconds. When accumulated attacks received, guard included, reaches 5 times on a cooldown of 20 seconds. So in general, this is a super, super good exclusive core for these characters. I always prefer to be able to gain power as opposed to take away power from my enemies whenever it comes to these exclusive cores for any of these limited banner characters. And of course, she has that version as well as Terry does. So in general, good stuff overall. So that is going to be the cores, you guys. Super, super solid right now. Really, really good. Now, when it comes to what we've got here on the skills, as we already established, she has nothing but grabs, so that's one thing. But let's talk about what these skills do. So first up here, she has Crab Clutch EX. This is going to increase the target's damage received by 30% for 8 seconds upon landing a skill, and she's going to drop lightning on all targets upon using it. So in general, I don't think I need to explain to you guys what lightning does. It's one of the best tier 2 dots in the game. So right off the bat, the S1 is a really nice little skill and super solid. Now we do have a derived skill here. So as you guys can see, this will be a derived skill. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to talk about what we got here. So we have Real Counter. This can be used when attacked, so it is an interrupt, but check this out. It's limited to standing, airborne, and knockdown. Oh boy, she's just gonna counter everything. That's really, really good. Now, as it goes here, this does have more to it because it is a derived skill. As you guys can see, we have Real Backdrop. This is going to use to increase attack by 42% for 8 seconds, gives her super armor for 3 seconds when using a skill, and has a 70% chance to remove the super or hyper armor from all targets upon use. So not too shabby, pretty darn good overall. This is going to be really interesting because it does have that triple threat there for its overall interrupt. And of course, whenever it comes to any of these skills, having these derived skills, I prefer charge skills personally, but at the same time, really, really good. Now, when it comes to Mary's Breaker EX, this is going to be her source of hyper armor for 3 seconds. So as you can already establish just based on that, she's probably going to have an interrupt on it, and she does, and it's limited to while being airborne. She's also going to increase her attack by 70% of her defense for 7 seconds when using a skill, which is, oh boy, a lot. So that's probably going to bode really well for her overall damage output. Again, you guys, I see I see several use cases for this character already, but honestly, a lunatic guild raid against Nightmare Geese, that poor guy, poor bastard. Anyway, Mary's dynamite swing is going to be her finisher, and it's worth noting because it is going to have an effect, and that is going to be a 60% chance to reset the active skill cooldowns when using a skill. Yay! It's really good. In general, you guys, this is awesome. This character has a really good kit, really good cores. You know, in general, she's just as good as any other super good SS or BS character. Is she going to be uber tier? We'll see. I don't know yet. This is just my knee-jerk reactions and my second time reading the effects. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not necessarily entirely sure where she'll slot in yet, but I get the feeling she's going to be tier 1 or uber. Definitely going to be in one of those two. More than likely uber, because based on what I'm seeing here, even with all those grab skills, yeah, that new core, that new stun fang or whatever it is, that's super good. Super good. So anyway, guys, Blue Mary definitely did her justice, but we got the main event right here. SS Terry. So it has been forever, it feels like, since we have gotten a new version of Terry. People have begged for a new version of Terry. He's finally here. So let's see if they gave the Hungry Wolf his due. So first up here, he is a red attack type. So not really necessarily the most relevant thing in the world. By the way, I want to point out his background is awesome. Absolutely awesome. You got Krauser, you got Geese, and then you got the Wolf. That's awesome. Now, when it comes to his leadership ability, he increases attack type fighters' attack by 60% and decreases their HP by 5%. Pretty good overall. Definitely useful. Not necessarily the most broken thing in the world, but pretty standard as far as your top tier, just flat attack increases for your different types of characters. 60% is definitely a big number. So in general, really good. So overall, pretty good leadership skill. Definitely like the leadership ability. And then the typing is fine. I mean, he's going to do a ton of damage, so it is what it is. Now, this is also a Fatal Fury character, so again, that new stone, you may want to consider it. It's there. So we've already talked about that, but in general, when it comes to the cores, Terry is going to have that 30% power charge rate increase. He's going to have an increase to his crit rate, his attack, his continuous damage enhances to his burn damage. He's going to have skill enhanced to blast skills, and he's going to have a critical damage rate increase. This one here is going to increase damage by 24% on a critical hit. It's a lot. This character is going to be stupid, guys. This character is absolutely stupid. I'm telling you right now, this character is, I can already tell you, uber tier. If Mary's uber tier or close to it, then Terry is definitely uber tier. Now, he has okay, which is, you know, more than okay, which means he becomes immune to stun and burn. He deals starlight damage equal to 80% of his attack to the target every 1 second for 10 seconds upon landing a skill guard included on a cooldown of 1 second, and recovers 5% of his HP upon landing a crit on a cooldown of 7 seconds. More than okay. It's really good. So in general, the immunity is nice, especially to stun, especially in PvP. However, dealing starlight damage equal to 80% of attack to the target every 1 second for 10 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included, on a cooldown of 1 second. Really solid, and that recovery there is great as well. So in general, this character is going to be great. Now, he also casts a shield that absorbs damage. This is not the crit shield, but it is the normal bubble shield. In general, you'll love to see a bubble shield regardless, so you'll love to see it. And then he becomes immune to damage for 4 seconds when his HP is 30% or less on a cooldown of 10 seconds, besides having just the special signature volume 5 exclusive we've already talked about. So the becoming immune to damage for 4 seconds when his HP is 30% or less is also really solid. That is a great save. That is so strong. It is so clutch. He basically has a built-in Akane for the most part there, and that is great. This character in general, I was really impressed by the second I saw his kit, and I continue to be more impressed as I start to hear a little bit of data coming in on this character as it starts to trickle into my inbox. So when it comes to his skills, I told you guys earlier I'm going to compare this character a lot to BS Nameless, and there's quite a few different reasons as to why. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So first up here, he has that charged ability. We've already seen this in yesterday's video when they released that trailer for these characters. That was quite clear that he had this, but it stuns all enemies for 1 second upon use on a cooldown of 7 seconds. That's real good. Now, is it as good as stunning all the enemies with fear? No. However, a stun is a stun, and I'll take it, especially when you can stun the entire board for just touching a button. 1 second is 1 second, that's one thing, but still, super, super good. Now, this can be used while being attacked, but it is limited to standing, keep that in mind. And also, of course, because it is a charge skill, you get that super armor. So in general, this is very abusable. This is super, super abusable. We've talked about this type of thing with BS Nameless in the past. This is always going to be something you love to see with these charge mechanics. So overall, loving what I'm seeing. Now, when it comes to the rest of this charge ability, he is going to increase target's damage received by 30% for 8 seconds upon landing a skill, and deals burn damage equal to 35% of attack every 1 second for 10 seconds upon landing a skill, guard included. That's a 10-second duration. Very, very strong. Liking what I'm seeing. Let's finish it off though, because there's more. This increases the target's damage received by 35% for 8 seconds upon landing a skill at max, as well as applying Infernal Flame to the target for 12 seconds upon landing a skill. Yeah, those durations. This skill 1 is so devastating. This is a really, really good skill, especially fully maxed. This character's spam on his awakening rotation. Oh boy, yeah, he gonna be a monster. Now, on Power Charge EX, used to increase attack by 50% for 7 seconds, and also deal starlight damage and burn damage equal to 5.5 times of the remaining burn and starlight damage, and removes burn and starlight when attacking. It's explosion for burn and starlight. It's just narrow it down. Good lord. They're so wordy sometimes with some of this stuff. So basically, this is going to be an explosion on the S2. Yeah, at least you can skip around it and control it. It is going to be interesting to see how this affects things. Now, some people out there might be thinking about that newest set for this character. I could definitely see it being useful for this character. However, it does increase burn and shock and not burn and starlight. So kind of keep that in mind. That's something that you'll kind of want to pay attention to. Now, of course, this is going to mean that that core that he has with that starlight, if we go back here, as you guys can see, he's got that deal starlight as we established. So that is basically going to be with the S2 what he's doing there. He's basically removing both of these dots and he's giving you that explosion damage. Really, really nice. So this character, again, going to do a lot of damage, and at least you can kind of skip around it. I'd prefer to see it on a finisher, just so that way it's easier to not have to worry about, especially on your awakening rotation. But explosion is what it is. It's double-edged sword. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's iffy. But in general, it's not going to make a big difference with the quality of this character, because this character's stupid as it is. So on Buster Wolf combo, this is going to be his source of hyper armor for 3 seconds. So as you guessed, it has an interrupt, and you increase your attack by 50% for 7 seconds. Yay! This character's really, really strong. And then finisher-wise, he is going to have an effect on Rising Force. This increases the target's damage received by 15% for 12 seconds upon landing a skill, and that is what we're looking at as far as the kit is concerned. So that pretty much does it for the banner, you guys. Overall, my opinions, I think Terry is the winner of the banner, but I think that Mary is super, super good as well. Both of these characters, in my opinion, are probably going to be uber. More than likely, I think Terry's a lock. Terry at this point looks godly. Mary, on the other hand, I'm going to wait to see. The only thing that has me wondering with her is she is a character that has a lot of grab skills, which historically speaking isn't the greatest. However, in things such as Nightmare, Geese, Lunatic difficulty, she's going to probably be the MVP and the best of all these characters for that as a solo character, just based on the fact that she has so much shock. But in general, I'm going to wait and see kind of on that. But I do think both of these characters are amazing. Just like with that last Boss Syndrome banner where we had two of the best characters we've ever had released in one banner, we have two characters here that are super, super good. And Terry, in my opinion, just, oh man, he's more than okay. Again, I will say it, I will put it that way. So in general, when it comes down to whether or not you should summon, it's up to you guys. If these are characters that you're a super fan of, I definitely think so, because they've done both of them justice. We didn't even talk about the animations, particularly on Mary's 3PG finisher, which I love. We talked about that yesterday. So when it comes to these characters, I think that they are definitely worth it if you want them. If you're a fan of either of them, they're worth pulling. You're going to be happy with the results. Now, when it comes to the cards, I would just try to get the finishers and maybe get the option for Mary if you're a big Mary person and you're going to be using her. The set, I would say you can probably just kind of skip around on. Like I said, If this thing increased both of the relevant dots for a character like Terry, I would definitely say it is worth it. But right now, being that it only really increases his one dot that he has, which is his burn, and does nothing for his Starlight, and it is decent on Mary as well because it's got that shock there, and you don't need to land a strike like the last BS set, but instead an active skill. That could be a case made for her as well. But I would say that honestly, guys, it's not really worth trying to go crazy for. But then again, I would wait to maybe see what some damage tests yield as far as how its performance compares to other card sets, and then we'll know better from there, because it's really hard to kind of gauge numbers just by looking at effects. So anyway, you guys, that is going to be the update. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was long, but we made it through it, just like all of these. So I hope you guys found this informative. If you did, smash that like button and subscribe. I hope you guys have some really good luck with your summons. Hope you get what you want. But until the next one, you all take care. Peace.
Continue.